So Paradox asked me to make a guide for Japan, but I haven't made a guide in like 2 years, and also Japan's made of like 30 countries. What am I supposed to play? Given none of the daimyos were really updated for 1.35, I guess I just get to decide. So I'll just show you how I play Japan then. And yes, the anime boy is going to teach you how to play Japan in EU4. Try not to think about it too much. You're already in too deep. So when picking a daimyo to play as, normally you're going to look at the ideas. If you want to play really militaristic Japan, then Oda is going to have a lot of really good ideas for that, giving your leaders +1 in every category by the end of it. But for our purposes today, we're going to play as Tokugawa. They get infantry combat ability, aggressive expansion, impact, morale, discipline, tolerance of the true faith, national unrest, and most importantly, development cost. Starting off as Tokugawa, we're going to have our 3 rivals, which are going to end up being Oda, Imagawa, and Ogasawara. We're going to seize land, give religious state, primacy of the Bushi, and land of commerce, as well as oversight by the Kannushi, clerical education, increased levies, supremacy over the crown, patronage of the arts, free enterprise, merchant guilds, naval school, rights. That'll allow us to pick up an admiral right off the bat. Not a fantastic one, but rather decent. We'll spend a little bit of money on hiring a free company, which is actually cheaper than getting regular units. Because our leader is relatively decent, we're going to hire a general instead of using our ruler, and we get to pick, are we going to try and build a spy network in this guy, or this guy? The answer is probably not Oda, they're already allied with somebody. So in all likelihood it's going to be either this guy or this guy. But in the meantime, we can get an alliance. Yamana is usually available, and I'm just going to guess this guy. If you ally Yamana, there's a decent chance Hosokawa is not going to like you anymore, but that's kind of okay. Just by improving relations we can fix that. I wouldn't recommend going for any royal marriages. There's a decent chance you're going to conquer all of Japan in about the first 15 years, and royal marriages are going to either cost you some stability or slow you down pretty significantly. Seeing as Ogasawara only has 1 ally, that being Hitabatake, we can go and invade them pretty easily, and we're also, maybe, there we go, able to turn them into a co-belligerent, reducing our aggressive expansion. Keep in mind, we also start with infantry combat ability and our own reduced aggressive expansion, which makes conquering all of Japan very easy. We can leave 1 unit behind here, pick up these 2, and move over to the ally. Might be useful for sieges like this just to hire an extra person so you can siege down a second capital, and once you're done with that, maybe making 1 galley wouldn't be a bad idea. Keep in mind, if you're ever going to invade somebody, estimating their army is going to cause everyone around them to attack them. So you can't just go around chasing the army halfway across Japan and then try to go back. You have to be pretty swift and decisive with pretty much every war. Now that we're done with this war, we can either decide to take Hitabatake this way, which is 12 Diplo and 7.8 aggressive expansion, or we can take it this way, which is 0 Diplo and only 5.9. In this way, you're going to gain less money, which in this case is 15 ducats. Ultimately, not massive, but this way you gain less aggressive expansion, so you can conquer more of Japan even faster. Now I'm going to look around for next target, ideally anybody who isn't allied to someone with a level 3 fort. It looks like there aren't a lot of those. I might just have to invade Oda, who's allied to my only ally, which is really awkward. Fortunately though, they don't have a level 3 fort, which is, pretty important. And we could just make other allies, right? I mean, it's not that hard. Uesugi is an option, but I'm not sure if Shiba's just going to end up fully annexing them. So I'm thinking we just don't have much of a choice. I've moved my army over top of Yamana so we can immediately annihilate it as soon as we declare war. The siege of Owari is over, or I guess you could say it's Owari. I'm so sorry. We're gonna go ahead, turn this into a state, but not a full state, just a half state. We're looking to use all of our admin on uniting Japan, not necessarily stating Japan. And with that siege over, we can take, almost everything, but not quite. If I do it this way, we could take everything, but that's a lot of aggressive expansion. It's a little bit unfortunate, but don't worry, because later on, we can just go ahead and invade them later. All they have to do is attack their allies, so easy. Now, in our brief moment of peace, we're gonna look for a couple of allies so we don't end up dying. We'll just go with some random people down here. Like, this guy seems fine. Now our next war is going to be against Uesugi and Imagawa, just because why not, right? Here we go. I actually went ahead and let them grab Nanbu, because I'm assuming they're going to annex that, which means more land for me. There you go, all according to plan. Being kind of slippery, so I have to go and chase them around a whole lot. 1 battle wasn't enough, I guess we have to do 2. Also, whenever I grow, I've been recycling my loans, like taking out a couple of new ones, getting rid of these 1% ones that are not quite as large, and going down here and getting some new ones. Luckily, with our leader being pretty decent in military, we can pick up this tech fairly early on. Most other countries in Japan are not going to have this tech. It means a coalition is less likely to form, and also you're less likely to get attacked. There we go, we finished our first mission. Really prestige and legitimacy for 20 years, not bad. Also, with your extra Diplo power, you can start decreasing your war exhaustion. Trust me, you're going to need it. Now, we're not quite done with this war yet, but that's fine. We can still declare this war over here because their allies not willing to help them. There we go, we finished this war off. It is a large portion of Japan, which will make a lot of people very angry, but remember, a lot of people are at war. They don't often have the opportunity to create a coalition. And even though we might get one, it's probably fine, because we own like a third of Japan now. Now we have larger loans, and a slightly larger force limit, so we can build more men. I'll also sell crown land, because I could definitely use a little bit more money. That'll give me 1 stability, a little bit of national tax, and a reduction in inflation. I'll also pay off any of these smaller loans, just so I can take out some new ones, and pay off those previous ones. That'll also allow me to buy another mercenary company. And with these new extra units, I can attack more people, including this coalition, just so I can burn it to the ground. At this point, I can also hire an admin advisor to get some more admin points, and I think I'm going to focus on admin actually. Now with the Siege of Kai done, we can of course annex them too. There's a somewhat decent chance we might be able to steal someone's navy if we fight it, so in that case, it might be worth a shot. That's both sieges at the same time, how lucky. Now we can get the Bushido Code, and of course we can annex both of these guys. We're gonna try and sweep up as many possible members that would maybe join the coalition, but either didn't have the opportunity or the willpower, really, which starts with Ando. While we're at it, we can also declare war on Hatakayama or Hosokawa. Let's go with Hosokawa. I went ahead and built a few more galleys because we might need them. Taking out a loan for that is really no problem. Remember that at this point in the game, not everyone's going to have Tech 4, so the chance of anybody declaring on you is rather low. Even Ashikaga, who doesn't like me but can't join a coalition against me, probably isn't going to declare war. After all, I have more units and a higher tech level. And the AI is not very good at coordinating. Alright, let's annex Ando. Now with these cores complete, we're going to half state them, of course. And we're going to start having a few rebels to deal with, but they shouldn't be that bad. Oh wow, the Neo-Confucian event already. Alright. Well, I'm going to go full closed for everything. There's a very good reason for this. Isolationism is key in the strategy I use for this new Japan. And one of the major hurdles for us in this run so far is that we haven't really had very much of a navy. We've been trying to steal ships, but it really hasn't been working. So instead I built up a whole bunch of galleys, I think I mentioned this maybe, and hopefully it'll be enough. There we go. We can probably take this top option. All daimyos are already rather displeased, so we don't care anymore. There we go, that's 1 siege, perfect. We should be able to aim for this stack wipe here, and then that'll be the rest of Hosokawa. And with that last siege, we've finally finished that war. We will of course fully annex both countries, and at this point I would probably recommend taking a slight breather. I understand for many people this is a little bit aggressive for forming Japan, but this isn't a speed forming and there's really no rush. This is just the way that I like to play because in the end, there are very few countries left that are in any sort of coalition, and when you're forming Japan, chances are they're probably gonna get one anyway. Now I'm gonna go ahead and repay some of my smaller loans, take back some land, get these better loans again, and repay some of the smaller ones. Now whatever point you're at before you decide to stop conquering everything, I would recommend to take the time for you to start reducing autonomy in a lot of places, anything which is significantly above 50%, or any of your core states. This will improve the economy, and even though you'll have, well, about the same number of rebels, they should be about as easy to manage as they would have been otherwise. There we go. Just as I predicted, as you become stronger and build your economy back up, a lot of the coalition's actually going to dissolve. Sure, you're gonna have a lot of debt, but if you ended up taking this a little bit slower, then maybe you won't. In the end, consolidating all of Japan is going to give you a lot of money early on, so taking on that debt is going to be no problem. Now here's another event for Neo-Confucianism. We're gonna go ahead and go isolationist again. Once again, I'm going to sell some crown land for some money. I'm not going to pay back any loans with it though. I'm just gonna sit on that. And don't forget, you should probably take this as soon as possible. The choice is up to you, but usually I go with offensive. Now, everybody's left the coalition. I imagine the path forward is pretty obvious at this point. We're gonna finish uniting Japan. We'll start with Utsunomiya and co-belligerent Satake. Oh, I should mention, if you take this fort up here, I would probably just get rid of it. It's a grasslands fort, not really worth too much, and it's already next to this fort which is on a woods, and that's pretty decent. It's ultimately a little bit too expensive. Now it looks like Shiba has no allies and is about to be annexed by Ashikaga, so we might as well intervene in that. Ashikaga would be very easy to beat at this point, but I wouldn't recommend taking the shogunate. That'll transfer all of Ashikaga's daimyos to you, and they don't like you very much at this point. Generally speaking, I don't like playing the shogun too much. You end up uniting Japan a little bit slower than you normally would. Even though it's fewer rebels, at the end of the day, I would prefer to unite Japan faster. Alright, well that's one war done. I think in this case I might just take the extra money, even though it's not worth much. And with that, there are just a few daimyos left, none of which I have truces with, and all of which I can annex. At this point, there's nothing that Ashikaga can do to us. Even if they try to fight me now, they're on Tech 4 and I'm on Tech 5, and I have way more men than they do. Once again, we're going to go full isolationist. Oh, that was a disgusting stack wipe. I guess that means this is pretty much over. There we go, we can add 1 to our isolationism level. We of course start off with level 2, and this moves us to level 3. Now, instead of getting construction cost decrease, we have an extra missionary and culture conversion cost decrease. That isn't our endgame though, but more on that later. And there you have it. I'm going to take everything separately this time, just so we can have a little bit more money. And that leaves us with 1 daimyo left. With the ships that we've built and, well, maybe the ones that we've stolen too, this should be rather easy. It seems we actually don't have a CB against So. We don't have a border, so we can't use Sengoku. Well, we have quite a lot to core anyway, so that's okay. Keep in mind when you're playing, you'll either need to annex So as part of an allies peace deal, or you'll have to fabricate a claim earlier. As for me, I just seized some land and I'm going to sell some more titles. This time I actually am going to use them to pay off a couple of loans. When it comes to this event, you might have this pop up. Personally, I wouldn't take the top option even if you need the money. The admin is quite a lot more valuable. And if this event pops up, I would just take the money. We now have our claim on So, and we can finish off the Sengoku Jidai. Now here's our first reform. I'm thinking for now we could curtail noble privileges to get some more tax. Oh, this is a nice event. Let's see what we get. Diplo power, not bad. Alright, there goes the Siege of Tsushima. I might be able to steal these ships real quick. Or not. Whatever, that's fine. Yoink. All daimyos will be displeased. Sounds like free prestige to me. Now, before you go to war with Ashikaga, I would recommend you save up about 200 or 300 admin points. You're going to be losing 3 stability by declaring on them, and the last thing you need is to be caught at -1 stability. After declaring war, you should immediately upgrade yourself. This will give you a little bit of prestige, and of course you should bump up your stability. Also, when fighting them, be sure to grab any spare ships, you're probably going to need them. And with the fall of Kyoto, we finally unified Japan. There it is. That'll give us 50 prestige, which, if you're at maximum prestige, will be converted all into 50 points of each monarch type. Keep in mind you're not going to go over your cap, but because we don't have the Renaissance, that works just fine for us. And you also get permaclaims on some of Korea. Where most people would end off their guide right here, finishing off the Sengoku Jidai, there's a lot more to this new Japan than meets the eye. That rhyme was unintentional, but I'm glad that worked. Now, you do have the opportunity, if you want to pull off some of the daimyo missions. You cannot do all of them, though. You can do this one, which gives you a temporary bonus. This is one of the default ones, actually. You could bolster your navy to give yourself a couple of bonuses, and then go ahead and take all of Korea, which gives you more claims and a little bit of admin. And then you can invade all of Manchuria, do all that stuff, get more military power, extra stuff. You can take all of Ainu, get a colonist, finish this off, finish this mission off. But ultimately, you're not going to be able to go past invade Manchuria. The Unite Japan mission requires you to actually be Japan, but if you own the Domination DLC, you're going to be swapping mission trees anyway. So at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. Now personally, I would recommend not doing any of these missions on the left side. If you're a min-maxer, then maybe, but the stuff that you end up getting out of the new tree is very useful, especially early on. So let's rival Korea, and how about we take a look? Immediately, you'll notice that as Japan, we still have Tokugawa's map color, which is very interesting. If you'd like to, for 10 years, you have the option to change yourself to the pre-1.35 Japan color. And as for ideas and traditions, I decided to play Tokugawa for a very specific reason. That's because I don't actually want the Japanese ideas. They are relatively decent within their own right, but the way that I'm playing this game, they're not nearly as good as what I'm going to need these for. And of course, as for your tier 1 reform, I would go with autocracy. Now this might have been looking more like a speed form than a tutorial for a while, but I can assure you, I wasn't actually nation ruining my country. Even though we have 448 ducats of debt, we are in positive income, and we still have a lot to state. Now that we've unified the country, what you should start doing is decreasing all of your autonomy. The main reason for this is this mission over here, the Edo Jidai. This event is going to give you minus 15% dev cost in all provinces for 25 years, which by itself is pretty decent, but is nowhere near the extent of where we're going to take this. In this stage of the game, you're going to spend a lot of your admin points on stating all of your previous cores. And with your new capital in Kyoto and a fairly decent amount of dev in there being taxed from stealing, we're going to go ahead, exploit a little bit of development to make this 16, which is a nice number for developing institutions. I'm going to turn on encourage development, and you guessed it, I'm going to start deving the institution. Keep in mind, with Korea as your rival, you should probably insult them just to get a few more points if possible. And before I actually dev the entire thing, I am going to expand infrastructure. Keep in mind, it's no longer minus 25% local dev cost, it's minus 15, but I'd still say that's probably worth it. Well, there we go. That's the Renaissance in Kyoto. We're gonna keep taking some land back. This event's pretty interesting. Decreased admin tech costs for 10 years, which isn't bad. Yeah, I guess we could take that. We don't have very much money though, so I guess I'll just have to sell some titles. And we can repay all of our loans. See? Told you I'm not nation ruining. Now, for this mission, you're gonna want to dev up Echigo to 8 base production before you click on it. As you can see here, you're gonna get gold in that province, which is very useful. It's not going to be your only gold province in Japan, but getting this one early is going to be a huge boost to your income. So let's do that. There we go, that's 8 Diplo development. As you can see, the reward has changed and we will now get gold in Echigo. Suddenly we're making quite a lot of money now. This event's kind of interesting because on one hand it seems like you just get a general and that's it, and on the other hand it looks like you get 1 extra Diplo mana until this guy dies. Now he's not very young, you know, he's looking kind of old, so I don't think taking that extra 1 Diplo is very useful. On the other hand, if we take this, I'm pretty sure we get a permanent bonus, don't we? Onnamusha, which gives us yearly army tradition decay minus 0.5%. The event doesn't tell you that, but it's probably worth it. If you're still having rebel problems at this point like I am, then it might be worth investing in getting that +1 stability back, and on top of that, if you have one, getting a -2 national unrest might be worth looking into. There you have it. We've cored everything. We have everything absolutely stated. Now, there are a few remaining problems. Number one, we have a lot of autonomy, and we're gonna have to wait for that to tick down. This game wants you to go practically isolationist for a while. You need an average autonomy at less than 5%, which is tough. And yeah, your entire development tree is locked behind it, so if you don't do that early and you start expanding, well, you're kind of out of luck. The other problem, which really isn't so much of a problem, is that we're kind of behind on admin tech. I haven't taken any since the beginning, and although that's allowed us to unite all of Japan, it's left a slight hole in our technology. The reason I decided to play a little bit further in is a proof of concept that I was not trying to nation ruin. Despite what appeared to be my best efforts to do so, we managed to come out on the other end with 0 loans, only 5 inflation, which given everything is a blessing, a relatively decent sized economy, and of course that gold mine. Now, this isn't the end of today's video. I want to talk about the strategy I used after forming Japan. So let's hop over to my other save. Welcome to my 1570 Japan. Doesn't look like much from a glance, but there's more than meets the eye here. For such a small place, it does fit quite a lot of development. I should probably explain. It's 1570, and the average development in any given Japanese province is probably somewhere roughly around the 21 mark. This is because the way that I like to play this new Japan, and also kind of the way that the mission tree wants you to, is very tall, like skyscraper tall. I would be shocked if there is a country out there that has better development cost reduction than this new Japan. It is absolutely insane. Who would have thought Japan would be the one to have ridiculous amounts of dev cost reduction, but hey, here we are. So we have an economy of 150 ducats per month. That is looking at roughly 2nd place, a little bit underneath the Ottomans, and although we can't see France or Spain, I would say there's a decent chance it's above those two as well. Also, if you're wondering about manpower, we have the highest max manpower in the entire game. Again, 1570. So the way this strategy works for Japan is you're going to end up starting off by taking aristocratic ideas. Your period of isolation is probably going to last until like, yeah, I don't know, 1530 or something. So in that time period, you're gonna pick up your first idea group. The reason I chose aristocratic is, well, surprise surprise, -5 dev cost. Of course, you do get some other decent things like national manpower modifier, CAF compatibility, and importantly, unjustified demands decrease. The main point is definitely that dev cost. Next, infrastructure ideas, which is a new idea group. I found it to be exceedingly abusable as this tall Japan, because your expand infrastructure cost modifier is -25%, and as you can see, I've been using that quite liberally. On top of that, state's governing cost is -10%, and you get -10% dev cost. I'm sure you can see where we're going with this. Next, you can pick up divine ideas, which is kind of wacky, aristocratic, and divine. But you can do that because as Japan, you have a special reform over here, interweaving of shrine and state, which allows you to pick up divine ideas. Note that it also doesn't disallow aristocratic ideas. This is important. So of course you get another -5% dev cost, that's -20 from ideas. And if I were a smarter person, I would have kept Tokugawa ideas to get -10% with my ambition. Unfortunately, my curiosity got the best of me and I checked out the new Japan ideas, which are okay, I guess. They're actually really good, but for these purposes, I would have preferred the old ideas. On top of that, you're also going to get full isolationism, which is another minus 10% dev cost. And really, things are only just getting started. Once you take Eroji Dai, you get another minus 15%. I believe there's one incident which when you finish it off is going to give you another minus 10% dev, but I don't remember. It might be the pirates. There's something that does that, I'm pretty sure. And you might think that we're done there, but no. Nowhere close. Once you finish the Nanban trade incident, if you go full isolationist, would you look at that? You get enforced Sakoku until the end of the game. All of Japan gets another minus 5% dev cost, but you think we'd be done? We're not done. You go on to expand the Gokkaido, and of course that's going to give you another minus 5% on all provinces in Japan. Of course, if you combine that with your previous ideas, and then you expand infrastructure, and then on top of that you get the dev cost, and on top of that you go and grab yourself some inward perfection, which is going to give you even more dev cost decrease. Then you can stack that with the merchant guilds giving you another minus 10%, and in the end you're going to end up with province modifier graph that looks something like what's on screen except missing a couple of extra modifiers. So yeah, all Japan. That's kind of what I was going for the entire time. Now your deving strategy is going to be with Diplo and Manpower, not Admin, because you're going to use your admin to conquer Korea. Now, they buffed Korea in this patch, and when I say they buffed Korea, I don't just mean that they buffed Korea like a tiny bit. No. They buffed Korea. It would not be insane for you to encounter a 300 development Korea by the time you fight them for the first time. They didn't just buff Korea, okay? Look at these provinces. 26 times improved. Alright, this is 14 times improved, this is 15 times improved, this is 22 times improved, this is 18 times, this is 7 times. I did not dev any of Korea. None of this is me. This is all Korea. Look at that. Pyongyang, 31 development, okay? They didn't just buff Korea. They buffed them a lot. So invading Korea is actually kind of tough as Japan, and building up with all of your dev cost modifiers makes it a little bit easier because yeah, you get a lot of money and you get a lot of manpower. And once you use that admin to start invading Korea, you can keep on deving your provinces with Diplo and Manpower, and use that admin to get even more development. And yes, that's how in the end, 1570, we have this much development in this little land. Quick addendum here, past Quarbit didn't mention the fact that the governing capacity cost is nowhere near as bad as you thought it would be. I'm sure a lot of you are going to say something in the comments about, but what about the governing cap? You're spending so much on the expanded infrastructure, wah. Don't worry about that, it's perfectly fine. It's 668 because they buffed state houses. It's really nice. Don't worry about it, things are fine. Also, he didn't mention that one of the missions kind of wants you to have 900 development in the Japan region, so developing is kind of part of the whole thing anyway. Just thought I should mention that part. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's the end of today's guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it because it is now 1:30 in the morning for me, and as always, this is Quarbit signing off. Have a fantastic day. Big thanks to the patrons this month, especially Yeo, Baby Cow, Q-Brute, Quiet Guy, Torvald, Robert Kaleno, Ambient Cyan, James Levy, Chewy Shoot, The Watcher, and Brova. For just $1, you can join the Patreon and get early access to videos.